Apologies for the late conversation being brought up here, but considering the status quo of the NHL trade market, how nothing has been done, and news from 2 weeks ago is still a talking point today, I wanted to go out there and cover my bases upon my return here to Vancouver. As I had said, I was out and about in Florida for the past week, and I'm actually going to Taiwan in a few days as well, so maybe I'll make some vlogs over there. I got a layover in Japan, so maybe there's a vlog or two to be had at Narita, but either way, no vlogs from Epcot. It was way too hot to even think about bringing my phone out and burning out the battery over there. With all that being said, though, I wanted to refer to an article on The Athletic published by Max Bultman on August 26, 2025. So this piece was, of course, from the week in which I was out and about, so I wasn't able to make a video talking about this, but Bultman went out there and asked, is an impact trade still possible before the season? At least, that's what the reader asked him in the Red Wings mailbag. This is a mailbag article, so of course, Bultman is responding to fans' questions and quandaries about the team. It'll be linked in the description if you want to go out there and read it yourself. Also linked in the description, however, is August 30th's edition of Spectre's Hockey, published by Lyle Richardson, which goes out there and summarizes some of the biggest news and trade rumors from around the National Hockey League. Lo and behold, surprise, surprise, Max Bultman's piece is included in the summary from August 30th, so the Spectre's Hockey piece, which is not behind a paywall, will also be linked down there in the description. Let's scroll and read what Max Bultman talks about. He was recently asked if the Red Wings might make a trade for a top 4 D-man or a top 6 winger. Bultman listed Pittsburgh Penguins defenseman Erik Karlsson and forwards Bryan Rust and Rickard Rakell as the most realistic to address the Red Wings' needs. However, Bultman is not holding his breath, waiting for any of those players to land in Detroit, citing the high asking price for Rust or Rakell, a first-round pick, and the aging contract of Karlsson. Bultman also acknowledged rumors linking the Red Wings to Mason McTavish, but doubts the Anaheim Ducks will part with the 22-year-old center. Winnipeg Jets winger and Michigan native Kyle Connor is UFA eligible next summer. Bultman doesn't see the Jets attempting to move him this far out if he remains unsigned. If they do decide to move him, the Red Wings should be amongst the suitors, though. Spectre's note goes out there and says the Wings might make another move or two to improve their roster before the start of the season in October. Based on Bultman's comments, don't expect to see Karlsson, Rust, Rakell, McTavish, or Connor donning the winged wheel jersey anytime soon. So, womp womp, this has been a total dud of a trade update in regards to the Red Wings and these guys. But let's be real. When it comes to Erik Karlsson, Bryan Rust, Rickard Rakell, Mason McTavish, Kyle Connor, I don't want to make it seem like any Red Wings fan was fully, in their heart of hearts, adamantly believing that any of these guys were going to be Red Wings in the upcoming few weeks. Like, okay, maybe by this time next year, we're talking about Kyle Connor as a potential Detroit Red Wing, depending on what happens with the Winnipeg Jets, depending on how the season goes for them, and depending on where Kyle Connor's contract talks takes him. In fact, we can start out with Connor here because we have discussed his name in the past. Contract expires at the end of 2026, making $7.142 million a year. 28 years old from Clinton Township, Michigan, USA. He's a left-wing guy who recently scored 97 points and 41 goals in 82 games played. Not to mention the fact that Kyle Connor had 17 points in 13 playoff games. He has been a total superstar. 93 points in 22, 80 points in 23, lower points in 24, but he did only play 65 games. Kyle Connor has been a consistent 30-plus goal guy with multiple 40-goal seasons under his belt. If this guy is playing with Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond, oh boy, watch out. You thought Kyle Connor worked well with Ehlers and Scheifele? Just imagine him playing with Larkin and Raymond. There can be a very strong Michigan connection there, and if I recall correctly, 2015-16. Was Dylan Larkin still at Michigan in that time frame? No, I don't think he was. I think 14-15 was his last season. Yeah, he wasn't. Hey, Kyle Connor was teammates with JT Compher on that team, and Tyler Mott. So there is a little bit of a connection there, you could say, does exist with Kyle Connor and some of the current Michigan Wolverines alumni that exist in the Red Wings organization. But of course, Kyle Connor is the biggest fish here, probably the best player out of the bunch that we've talked about as well. If you want somebody who is like a Kyle Connor, but maybe just a bit inferior, you're probably thinking about a Rickard Rakell, 32 years old, making $5 million a year till the end of 27-28. So the fact that he does have cost-controlled money on his profile, I'd say that is pretty beneficial if you're thinking about Rickard Rakell as a consistent 70-point asset. The problem is you don't know if he's necessarily going to be that. He's 32, so of course he's getting older. No guarantee that he continues to sustain this level of play heading into the next few years. And you also have the argument that says that Rickard Rakell has only really played his best hockey when playing with a top center. This 17-18 season with Anaheim, where he had 69 points in 77 games, if I recall correctly, was he playing with Getzlaf? Yeah, he was. That was the top line. Rickard Rakell, Ryan Getzlaf, and Corey Perry. This most recent season, you saw Rakell go from 37 points to 70, playing alongside of Sidney Crosby and Bryan Rust. Rust, I think, is a guy who fits a lot more in the Detroit style, and the reason I say that is because of Steve Yzerman's tendencies to draft guys that play like this. In Marco Kasper, Nate Danielson, Michael Brandsegg-Newgard, these guys who can go out there and play with some pretty good grit and some pace, whilst providing some scoring upside in the process. You also have Carter Bear, whom the Red Wings drafted earlier this season. I mean, they all kind of fit under that same cloth. Bryan Rust is in that family of players, but he's 33 years old, so he's a little bit older than Rakell. Contract also expires in 2028, $5.125 million. He has been a little bit more consistent in scoring than Rickard Rakell has the past few years, but of course Rakell has had higher highs than Bryan Rust. So you kind of have to give and take. Choose what it is that's more valuable to you. Do you like the play style? Do you like the grit? Do you think that the money on Rakell's a little bit better? Also, I would say that, just from my subjective opinion here, I do think that Rakell's game is better to age than Bryan Rust's, mostly because Rust can bang the body, he can be a lot more physical, and Rakell's more of a pure offensive guy, so I would think that those offensive instincts go away less as time goes on, and a guy who plays a lot more physical, like a Rust, might have a little bit more susceptibility to aging out quicker. But then you could say Mason McTavish. He plays that same style of game, but he's only 22 years old. So obviously there's a lot of value here in Mason McTavish. We've been talking about him as a second-line center for a lot of NHL teams over the past few weeks here. Whether or not Detroit could really get involved, it does not seem like that's the case. The Red Wings might not be able to give up the assets that Anaheim wants to get it done. Anaheim probably wants an ASP. I don't know if Detroit's interested in giving up that kind of a player. Speaking about defensemen, though, Erik Karlsson also in the mix here too. Contract's pretty big. The guy's pretty old. He still scored himself 50-plus points the past 2 seasons, so I think he's fine as an NHL defenseman. If you get a 100-point guy out of Karlsson every year, then obviously sign me up. That's a guy that's super valuable, even if he's making 11.5. But if he's only getting 50 points a season, then you start to become a lot warier, especially since he is 35. But with all this in mind, Boltman's update on the Red Wings is that neither Karlsson, Rust, Rakell, McTavish, or Kyle Connor seem to be likely Red Wings trade candidates in the upcoming weeks here. Who knows what happens as the season goes on, but for now, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Pittsburgh Penguins, Anaheim Ducks, and Winnipeg Jets as potential Red Wings trade partners? And what are your thoughts on this Detroit Red Wings trade update, which pretty much says that all these guys are womp down the toilet at the moment? Thoughts in the comment section below. Both articles will be linked in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.